All right. Teaching demo day.
Demo day.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I'm gonna
Teaching
share.
demo day is not alliteration.
No, it doesn't work. Just demo day. There we go.
Teaching Tu's demo day. Okay, so yeah, so I guess I'll just sort of walk through it. Actually, no, it might make more sense to also have. Oh, I didn't mean to. Okay, might also make sense to have open the original PDF. Just.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's a great idea.
For that, okay. New tab.
The Bryce, the first thing I'm noticing,
Yes.
something all of my students didn't do, so I think we have to add it to the wizard, but it is to change that short title, because the phrase "ask the court" document statement doesn't make sense. We should give people some.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I came up with mine a lot as well.
That's a good point. I have not looked a lot at, but I have honestly, mostly like this first page I haven't looked a lot of, and I've done a few other things with the like basic question stuff. But yeah, so like
I just figured it would come out in the wash, like when people did language review. But
it's like you don't want to have to do it for every single interview you do.
Mm.
That's one of those things that people should be able to do so that you don't have to catch it, right?
Yeah, they should know when they might not, but they might have a better guess than ask the court if it's not a court form.
Right.
Yeah, I think
where is that variable? Or is it in the wizard?
Well, click source and you can see. I forget what we called it. It's like interview short title or something like that.
Because I found that somewhere. There it is.
Yeah, so it's basic questions, choice screen, interview short title. I guess that is the interview short title. Well,
all right. Okay.
Yes, yeah, that's the interview short title. Okay.
So it's a basic question. So if you're using that you can alter that basic question from you use the basic question and then you just put the variable you want in for interview short title.
Exactly.
You type it in, you don't do the
yeah, you just hard code it.
Yeah.
Which that makes sense. I think it defines a bunch of stuff like up here. I guess is interview short title defined somewhere else? Because there's a short title here that is just a civil document statement. But
you want interview short title.
Yeah, the interview short title is, maybe shouldn't be it's not generated in this file. So that's one of the things. That's another alternative. Instead of giving people a choice, just inserting the boilerplate.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's defined in basic questions unless you override it.
I could not figure out how to do that the other day. That's helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's not super a good thing. I'll keep it in mind. Cool. So this is being recorded, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just gonna double check. So I don't have to write everything down. Okay, so yeah, this is the original form. First 2 pages are instructions. Where I tried to just copy the text of the instructions. And where I couldn't, it mostly didn't really work. So the actual form itself is not super bad. So there's docket number, so the appeals court docket number, since I believe at this point they should have a docket number for the appeal, plaintiff, defendant, which of the parties is the appellant and which is the cross appellant, which is the appellant, essentially who's filing this and who is appealing, attorney info, etc. Court department, lower docket number. Some of these I don't like, sort of this was all I had to prompt with, and so I would appreciate sort of any sort of like clarifiers or like, I guess like such sub questions or additional texts that could be added to.
Yeah, we can probably make that a drop down for court department.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, but I guess we'll see, because I wasn't. Is it always going to be like one of the 7 like probate?
Well, these are for administrative decisions as well, aren't they? Is this? Yes. I forgot what this form is.
This is for administrative decisions as well.
So it might not be a.
I'm pretty sure. Really, it's mostly just for any appeal that is civil and not criminal.
You think you have a 38, Caroline?
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
Oh, well,
It does say border agency, so that I think you're right.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Good point.
And so the question then
Yeah,
becomes
so
is if that list is it's still a finite list. The question is if it's
Well, it's going to be huge.
short
So
enough that, yeah.
For agencies, it's going to be very
Yeah.
large. But
So yeah, so maybe free text field makes sense then.
we
I
could
mean, if
ask,
you think
wasn't-
about it as a PDF, people aren't gonna. So, I mean, if you think about right now, the appeals court doesn't have this in Adobe, whatever that fancy program it is, right? So that people are just going to write this in, right?
there
And
is
it
actually Adobe Live Cycle, I think. Do you actually?
Oh.
That's a good question. When you look at that court department drop down, does it only
So,
show? court?
sorry, yeah. So this isn't a drop down. This is just a text entry.
It's
They do
on
have
the-
some drop
And,
downs in this form.
and this is the original form too. This is the one you got from the court website, right?
Yes, yes, this was
Oh.
this is the original.
Alright.
So there are some drop downs on this form, like there's an interjudgment, like role of the judge. There is a really long drop down on nature of case. But yeah, that particular thing wasn't a drop down in the original. I tried to keep drop downs where I could. But yeah, so court department, lower court doc number, judge, their role. This one was just if there's anything impounded. I'm not sure if I should. I guess I'm now realizing if any sort of additional structure should have been added because they specifically, this is just like a sort of a text entry, but it is specifically asking for like, are there multiple documents that have impounded and like specifically what authority are they impounded on? And I feel like that could be turned into a table. It's not at the moment. It's just still this big text field, but be something else to think about, I guess. Yeah, so nature of the case, which is a large drop down. Perfection of the appeal, which has another drop down with some either specified stuff. Docketing date of the judgment and of the appeal. This sort of table that is, I guess, just for various, from what I understand, just various judgments that could have been, or sorry, various motions that could have been added after the judgment that I guess just may make the notice of appeal like longer to process, from my understanding. What they're actually appealing on, related appeals, and then like signature and stuff. And the certificate of service, I know I don't handle super well, but I'm also a little confused. Some of the parts I'm not sure who is asserting this and how specifically. Like, so it says, I heard a certify on the penalties of perjury that I have made service of the copy filed on behalf of, is like on behalf of X. Would this be the like
Must be the party.
the party and sort of, or okay, filed on behalf of, so does that mean I guess I think this makes sense.
Wait,
If
let
it's
me-
just always the party.
It's a little
Sorry.
weird.
And then it's specifically just asking for the addresses at the other party.
That second field is actually the other party. It's just filed on behalf of is a weird phrasing. But I think that
Yeah,
they're serving the other party through their attorney, is what that means.
I see. So in this case, would it make sense for signature to be just whoever is filling out this form? It doesn't necessarily have to be the attorney or anyone else, or should it be should it always be the attorney, even if you might have an attorney? Yeah.
It's a weird thing with digital forms. So the certificate of service usually is filled out after you serve it on the other party, which by definition you can't do in a guided interview.
Oh, so wait, this is a certificate of service of this form?
Yep.
Or, oh, okay. I had the impression that it was for a different form. That is a good point.
That's understandable. That impression is understandable.
In that case, yeah, I have no idea how. I don't know if y'all have any good ideas of like, should I try and just modify the PDF to not include this?
This is like the age-old problem since we began these interviews. Is how do we deal with the certificate of service? And a lot of times we have people call the clerk at the court and ask them, first of all, how they're going to file, how, once you fill this form, how are you going to file it? And then how do you make sure it gets served? And so I don't think we've gotten a specific, it's by form or something, isn't it? We don't have a good rule.
Well, the nice thing is this is all within the appeals court, and I'm trying to remember, did we come up with a solution for one of the other forms?
Let's see. I think we asked them how they're going to serve it, and they do
Yeah.
have information at the time they fill it in.
The appeals
some of
court's
our
going to
forms-
serve, or you mean on the other form you asked?
No,
the
no,
person?
we ask the litigant who's using the system, how will you serve this document? And that's
So you could change the certificate of service saying, I will serve I mean, that's what we did with the, it's a family law form authorizing somebody to take care of your children, not temporary agent. The other one, I'm drawing a blank, but we changed it specifically. We changed the form, even though it's a court form, or it's not a court form, but for immigrants, so that they could plan ahead, so that they could say they were going to. And I don't know if you can get the okay from the appeals court to say, you will serve this. You certify that you will serve it.
Okay.
I think that's what we did in the other appeals form.
Uh-huh.
I think that's how he phrased it. I don't remember if the certificate of service has it phrased it that way. That also might be okay with us just not changing the form yet, but just having that be the model for how it goes. So I would look at one of the other appeals court forms though, Bryce, and see. You could probably copy the whole certificate of service block as well.
Quentin, are they labeled appeals court forms? Will he know how to figure out what another appeals court form is?
As long as I can find the GitHub repo, I can generally figure it out. And I might just find the GitHub repo by going to our live forums.
Well, if we go into the Trello cards, I mean, don't the students have some?
I'll just link it to you.
Okay.
I'll link you.
Just like any of these appeals forms, you mean, Michelle?
Well, they're not all appeals court, are they?
Well, some of them, I think, say appeals, right? I have seen one that says appeals.
Oh, I'm doing that thing again where I
moved a couple
talk
over to live because those are the 3 live.
I'm not sure what's happening.
Last buffer.
Did our
After
responses
Twitter,
match up,
there's
David?
live.
Oh,
Yeah, I was just, Quentin provided the link to the first one there in the chat, and then I realized I had been talking with my mute on.
okay, so just like any of these.
Yeah, that's a good one to look at because I think that was the first one we finished. So you could see, you could copy the certificate of service questions from that one.
Perfect.
Or
okay.
use at least very simple.
Okay.
And whatever we've done there, they've approved, so it's okay to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay, cool. That sounds good. Yeah, so that is the existing form, the interview we can do now. So, okay, we've already mentioned we need to just change this beginning header, and then likely edit these steps as well.
Isn't that basic question going to change so that we don't? Or are you
have an
able
appeals
to?
basic questions, Quentin?
We do actually, yes, we do.
So
Can you email the form to the appeals court?
Yep, the appeals court, you can email the form.
Oh, then you're good. You're right.
But we should
this other than using the appeals court version of it, which will have the right contact information for the court.
Okay. I am pretty sure no. Okay, I did. Okay, you're right. I like noted that there was an appeals version of these. I swear I included it at some point, but it doesn't look like it is now. So I'll add that. Okay. Okay, so accept to continue.
We might check at some point. This is a total tangent, but to see if like that is a confusing or helpful thing for people to have that opening screen. But you don't have to. But you shouldn't change it just on this one.
I do think it's nice to have context for people who come to the forum from who knows where.
Yeah, it is still nice. Yeah, so this is just more specific stuff about this form. If you're feeling judgment in a case, you should submit this form within 14 days. It used to say within 14 days of issuance of the notice of entry of the appeal, which just was extremely confusing to read. And so I just took off issuance of, since I think I'll suggested that we keep forms being the same, and notice of entry of appeal is important. So that's the same. I phrased these as just like, do you have an attorney, instead of like, will there, I think the basic questions is like, will there be an attorney on this case? Just phrase it as, do you have an attorney? Let's say we have yes for now. This attorney is a person. They are law officer, law boy. And then their bar number. I don't actually know what bar numbers look like. I wanted to put validation in there, but I don't actually, I have no idea where to actually find what they look like. So I just accept anything still. So that's that. Department names, yeah. So this is just empty, like sort of any text entry, like I was talking about, but I don't where. So it sounded like there might be at least a way to get like courts as a drop down, and then like administration, I could just do like, if you click administration, you have to type your own or have a different drop down or something. Where would I find that list of departments in the lower courts?
So I would just have them choose the court, and then
Just
Isn't
choose
this
court.
the question that's also answering agency, organization or agency?
Yeah, Bryce was saying that would be a failover state if you said not a court, and then you do a narrative or do a string.
Oh, sorry, missed that one.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, it is just court department on the form.
Yeah. But I do think for a minimum viable, we can just go with the string.
yeah,
that-
You mean a text field? When you say a string, you mean a text
Yeah,
field?
text field.
we get the document. That's
Can you,
very weird. I would.
Bryce, can you go to the
I don't
question
think they
before?
only mean.
Quentin, I don't know if other people
You're
are
breaking up
experiencing
a
it, but
little bit.
I can't hear
Yeah.
Quentin. Yeah, he's breaking up.
Okay. I don't think they really mean just court department. Hold on, let
Yeah,
me try
I don't
change.
either.
Because they ask for the docket number. Sometimes the docket number will tell you what court it really is, but only if they type the docket number incorrectly, which they might not do. Hold on, let me try disconnecting and reconnecting my Wi-Fi.
Of course, as soon as we pointed it out, now you sound fine.
Oh, still freezing bits.
Well, I'm just reconnecting. That's definitely was going to freeze it when I disconnected. Is it any better
What
now?
if
Yeah,
what
you
if
seem
you
fine
had a
now.
question? So 3, lower court, board, or agency information. What if you have a question that says, which of these 3 decisions from which of these 3 are you appealing? I mean, not that language, but the question would be, you're appealing the decision of which of these 3, a lower court, a board, or or agency. That would break it up. That would allow you to do drop downs for some, not do drop downs for others. So you could have different questions depending on what they are. And then also you wouldn't be asking the questions about court department and lower court docket number unless, you have to talk to somebody who does this form, unless say it's DTA or DCF or something. And then where it says court department, you would put in something specific to DCF or DTA or something like that. I don't know how that, the appeals court, maybe the appeals court person would be the person to talk to about this. I don't know, just throwing that out there.
So the docket number includes a 2-letter code, which tells you which 2-digit code rather, that tells you what what it is. But I think probably you could just think of court department as a place to put the whole name of the court. So when you get to the court selection part, you would just use our same, not our court finder, but you would use the same. You could look at the court finder and see
Drop-down list.
creates that drop down list and have that be.
But what happens if it's not in a court? If it's an agency or a board?
No, I think you had the right solution to that part, Caroline.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, having the 3 choices, and then for the court branch of those 3 choices.
So my question was, do you think so if you talk to the appeals court, what happens if it's an agency or a board? Do you still use A and B under 3 and put different information in there, or do you skip those questions? because actually you don't know. You see, it's asking court department. So say it's an agency or a board. What do you put in there? Court departments.
Can we
Do they
look a
have
little
any
further down?
specific?
Is there room for that?
So for what?
Oh,
Instructions.
look there. It says
Oh, sorry,
court
sorry.
department and division, even though it says court department on the form. Okay.
We can put a pin in this, but at some point in the future, there could be a more like guided interface to putting in your docket number if it's detected to be an invalid docket number, like to not have the right information. But we don't have to discuss that now. Just
There could be, the problem though is like how inconsistent people are for how they provide docket number, and also how inconsistent for each kind of case and which court you're in, whether that's important to provide or not. So it might end up being helpful for some interviews, but not others. So, but we could think about it for sure.
Okay.
It does not say what to do if you're.
It doesn't say if it's an agency. I think
It
that was an
doesn't.
appeals court question, since you said they're so amenable and helpful.
Yeah, that's definitely a question for clarification.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you were just looking to like have something in there and see what they thought about it, you could probably just put the agency or board name there in A.
That sounds right. But it still makes sense to, I guess it sounds like it still makes sense to at least ask, like, is this a court, is this a board or agency at first, and then at least showing everything to the user, we're using board or agency or court, but then they just still go into the same location back here, the same spot in the form.
And then you might have a case number. I mean, if it's with an agency, I don't know what a board is, but if it's with an agency, you're going to have a case number.
Like the Board of Zoning Appeals or something like that, right? Like someone's didn't give you.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
What's under role? Can we see that?
Role. So yeah, role is, yeah, so I can actually,
Judge's role, isn't it?
roles, enter judgment, heard motion, reported case or question, trial judge. Specifically for roles, it does specifically say not applicable for board or agencies. since I
Oh,
guess
okay.
there's
So you
no
don't have
judge.
to.
Okay, okay.
But there's no like. Okay. Anyway, that's a bad. You're gonna have something written there no matter what, because there's none of the above under role, and I don't understand what that means. Enter judgment or trial judge. When would you know which one to pick? Can we see that list again?
So it's, yeah, enter judge, heard motion,
Yeah, read it.
reported case or question, reported case or question, and then trial judge.
Do you think
We'll see
enter
it-
judgment, they meant that to be like choose one for what judgment was entered where?
When we get to Bryce's
That
question,
might be there, none of the above. It might mean select one of these.
That would make sense. That would make sense.
That's what I
Okay.
was thinking. But I don't know, is there a
Okay.
question for them?
Yeah, I think that would be a question for them. Sorry, I read a lot of these things and I'm like, I don't know if this is legal jargon or if this is like a drop down selection. I actually have
Yeah.
enter judgment as a drop down selection because it felt like it was a thing that it could happen. Okay.
Same here, Bryce.
Okay, cool. Okay, so that makes sense. So in that case, so this is how it looks like. It docket number is just still pretty
Yeah.
dumb. They're not in quite the same order, but this is just a so this is D, or like the question I have on my form is just D of like, was there anything impounded? I have a little help that is the like exact text from the help or from like the instructions.
yeah,
Which I don't know. Like, I guess I felt like putting just sort of like a ton of like legal citations and jargon stuff in the help was better than leaving it on the question, but I still don't know if I was thinking really like I could put like clarification or something instead of help, because it's not really help. It's more of like, if this is vague, here's a lot more information, but it's not, it might just confuse you more.
Yeah, or something about, learn what impounded means, or, man, that's a horrible wordsmithing, but yeah, something other than help. And I think that's what we defaulted with on the other forms, right, Quentin? Whereas the appeals definitely wanted to have the statutory references in there, but we could push them into the help screens.
Okay. And there are a few times where I will just like, I think I found, and later on, I think I found a few of the statutes and on their site, like in their legal
Linked to
library
them.
site, and I just link directly to that. Since that seems
David, were you saying that the appeals court wants the statutory citations in the form?
That was my impression. Yeah, that if they had
Oh.
them in the original instructions,
Interesting.
then they
Okay.
wanted them there. I think because they would like to have the backstop to be like, this is what.
Sure,
the
it
real
makes
up- you know.
sense. Yeah.
Okay.
That was my impression, right, Quentin? That's how you
Yeah.
feel about what they've been saying.
Yeah, a lot of them they have sent us with citations and kept in most of them.
I think that's fine to stick them in at the bottom of the help and have them, and then have it just linked to the statute. That makes perfect sense. I do think for the help, I would have it say, what do you mean by, what does impounded mean?
That's what I was looking for.
Or you could even just say impounded question mark.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, I mean,
Well, so
instead of
the
where it
thing-
says help, right?
Yeah. I don't know, because the thing I'm confused about is that, like, it does seem like they're using the term impounded differently than, I don't know if this is, and again, that's like a legal jargon thing that I'm not certain about, but it seems like they're using it to all mean impounded, but then also other things. So like, even if
Yeah.
you know like what impounded means, it also might be talking about like confidential things that isn't technically
sure.
impounded, but is other things too.
You could phrase it in a positive way. Let's go back to the question again.
Sorry, yeah.
You could say, like, is there any part of the original trial record that is not public?
I like
Potentially.
that.
And you could explain.
Explain
In your
that.
sub
Okay.
question,
Counted.
you're saying you put that in the sub question.
Yeah, have the explanation in the sub question, like those bulleted things.
I like
So
that.
Yeah,
those terms of
Okay.
art.
that's a good plan. Yeah.
I like that too. Okay. So cool. Okay. So in this case,
And
let's
that's
say
what
yes.
they really care. That's why they're asking here. Like the judge wants to know, like, if I request the record, are there going to be any hurdles for me doing that?
I see. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So in this case, there's just general, like just the same text area form. Like there's, even though it looks like it might be sort of requesting some sort of more structured information, that just sort of stuck with text area. That make more sense to just leave it like that, since it's not like the court's going to be getting it in any more structured way as well.
Do you want a spelling error check note
Yes.
attention to?
Yes, please. Which is spelled wrong.
It's those big marble things that are really get in the way of impounding stuff.
It's a really common typo to me because it doesn't get caught by spell checking.
Wait, I'm
This-
sorry. Which part is wrong?
It's you see where you say e.g. court order statute? You mean statute, not statue.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll probably change that with language anyway, but just so you know, it's statute.
Thank you. Okay. Statute. Cool. Okay. So
You don't want to say any language things. You were holding back, Caroline.
I was holding back. I'm really holding back.
no, please give me language things. Okay. So
But I thought a spell check would be
I'll check it.
something you have to bring up.
yeah. So in this, I sort of ended up phrasing the judge questions like this: of how many judges gave orders that are being appealed. If it's from a border agency, this just say zero.
So Bryce, this one, you don't have to tell people how to answer this. If you do that question that we were talking about, is it board, agency, or court? If they say board or agency, you put 0 in. They don't have to put 0 in, right?
Yeah, just
Like you don't even ask the question.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good point. I do it at a few other places, but that's a very good point. I didn't think about that.
Just thinking about the user experience on this question, I would say, like, tell us about the first judge. Are there any other? I think
that way. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you think you would say
Is this
that?
an MVP review or
I
is
think
this
it would
a-
be. I wonder sometimes though, Quentin, is it
Taking it
gave
easy.
orders or how many times have you appealed this decision? I think you might do actually. How many times have you appealed this decision? Or I think it's better to do one, another.
Well, I don't know. I'm actually not sure what the set of judges they would look for here would be.
How many
I think
times
there
have you
could be
gone to
2 judges
court?
in one case. Like, that's not uncommon in a housing case, which I think is their main.
Yeah.
So the instructions are, list each judge whose order or judgment is the subject of appeal and their role. If they ruled on a motion, but you're not appealing that ruling, the judge need not be listed.
Oh,
And then down
Right.
here, they specifically say the role of each judge whose orders are at issue on appeal.
right. So basically, how many judgments have you gotten?
That
Right?
you
Or
wrote.
not judgments, but
Yeah, but it's
orders.
things you want to appeal. So like there could have
Oh,
been a
right.
hearing that was
Yeah.
not, that you're not appealing.
I mean, it's like it's one of these weird things where it's like they're making you do all this work that they should have from the relevant set of documents.
Well, you have to, but you have to say, well, you have to tell them what you're appealing though, right?
Yeah.
So they don't, they're not going to know what you're appealing. You're going to have this list of decisions. And
Right.
I mean, maybe
That's
it's
a good
pretty
point.
obvious.
But they could give you the list of decisions to
Yeah.
pick from. But
So
yeah,
maybe you could ask how many orders are you appealing? And then
Or
you could ask a
I would
judge for
say
each
decisions.
decisions.
You have to do that though. You don't really ever have to say that. They don't. That's the thing that's weird about it. That would be like way more natural to say like, what are you appealing? Who are
Yeah.
the judges that were involved in those issues? But they don't
Yeah,
really.
that makes a lot
that's
more
great.
sense
Yeah.
that way, Quentin.
I see. So that
Because
actually,
you're gonna have your court, you should have your court orders. I mean, I think that's one thing that we are trying to do with a lot of these appeals and answers is that you have your court work with you before you start to fill out this form, because you're gonna need the information from that to answer the form.
that makes sense.
I would do it like, yeah, change this question 6, move that up higher, and then say like, what judges were involved in this decision that you want to appeal? And
Yeah.
what judge, and then say like, is there not any other judge? Or there's some way that you can ask it that will flow more naturally just by changing the order of the questions, I think. So you
Yeah.
might come up with it. Maybe the number does make sense at that point. It's like how many judges were part of that decision.
Or it's really the decisions that you're appealing, right? So how many decisions are you appealing? What's the first decision? What judge? Would you have more than one judge involved in one decision? Or one judge orders? You would, because
I
it
think you
goes up the ranks.
potentially could. I've definitely. Well, here's like in the housing court, the judges sit. They try to keep the same cases that they started, but they don't always. So
Oh, I see.
maybe
But they
one judge makes a decision that you didn't like, you file a motion to reconsider, and it goes to a different judge.
Gotcha. And then you would have, and it wouldn't be the so the question though is, would it not be the last decision, right? You're not going to appeal the first, it goes to another judge. You're not going to appeal the first one. You've already gone to another judge. So it's the most recent decision in that.
Yeah, but it's for that issue because you could have multiple. You could
Right.
have
But
a-
it's, yeah, but I mean, it's like the issue, but it's only gonna be one judge making an order, right? You're only appealing. I mean,
Each-
you may be appealing different decisions, but only one judge is gonna make each of those because it's gonna be the most recent decision. So, one judge says I'm evicted, then I go, I don't know how this works. So you go to another court, you get another judge to say something, you go to another court, you get another judge. I don't know whether it's housing district superior, I don't know what the chain is. But you're not going to be appealing the housing court decision. You're going to be appealing the superior court decision because it's the most recent decision that you're appealing, not the first one, because you've already dealt with that. Another judge has ruled on that. So it would really be the ones that are standing, the ones that are active are going to be the ones you're going to be appealing.
No, I think you're probably right. Actually, I guess it could be a good question to ask the appeals courts. Like, what are the common situations where somebody has more than one judge? And that might help us figure out how to phrase it too.
Yeah, I think this
have
is
to ask them how many issues though, Caroline, because that may not correspond to the number of judges. They never have to report how many issues. But if we just tell them
that you're appealing,
all the issues,
that you're appealing.
but they never have to reflect back issue by issue.
Or
They
no,
just have
but
to
it's
summarize
decisions, right? It's
have
decisions,
to-
not issue. Is that you're saying issue and decision is the same thing?
It's not going to be a one-to-one mapping always, but one decision could have like 20 issues in it. Maybe you have two
Oh,
decisions.
I see what you're saying. Gotcha. Uh-huh. So it's the issue itself in the, yeah, I getcha.
This is like a summary. So it's like briefly summarize the issues. And then I think you could reflect back after that. It's like, hey, who was involved in making the decisions
Right.
that you want to appeal?
Okay.
Mm.
And
Well,
just
I mean,
feel like if
yeah.
you want to make someone answer how many judges, if it's almost always going to be one judge.
Yeah.
That's all. That's my thought of it. It's like making that common path there be the simplest and easiest to understand. Like having people add up all their judges is
Agreed. That is strange.
a little awkward, but it's not like, yeah, it might be the fine because it's just anyway.
That's fair. So, my dog is yelling.
So, Bryce, do you feel like you have enough to work with then on this? I don't feel like we've necessarily come to a conclusion, but
Honestly, yeah. At least putting like the idea of putting this like sort of broad, what issues are you appealing first, and then like, hey, who's involved with those? At least makes a lot more sense. But like even then, so just you have, I'll just sort of go through filling in the judges really quick. It's the same drop down. I guess interjudgment is not an actually, or we'll ask, but it's likely not. So let's see this. You heard the motion, and then
I just had this sense in my head of like a herd motion of being like a motion for a herd of animals. Like everyone went in the same direction. There we go, just entering a little levity.
The direction is over a cliff.
Yeah. And so this was just it is also a huge drop down in the PDF. It's a huge drop down here. I don't really know if there's a better way to organize it. At least there's, if you do other, you can specify it. But if you don't, then just sort of leave it as something. This was definitely parts where I like tried my best to sort of plain language it, but it seemed like I could only do some. So is this an appeal from a final judgment as opposed to a temporary judgment? Some like just clear legalese. I don't know, disposing of all parties and claims seems like I didn't understand that the first few times I read it. Let's say if you say no, then you have to give these like just why are you how are you still appealing? Others still works. But you just say yes, then you don't have to. When was the judgment order being appealed docketed? As I think what so this is supposed to be 5C, docketing date of judgment or interlocutory order appealed.
This is where I think the changing of the order of the questions would also help. Like, what order are you being, what order are you protesting or whatever, and then ask when was the court date for that or something, right? Is that right, folks, or am I off base there?
No.
You broke up there, Quentin.
Yes, I think you're right. That makes sense.
Okay.
So these are two different things though, because okay, so no, never mind. Okay, it's just I'm reading it wrong. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Does it make the most sense to try and go through like just reorganize things instead of like form structure to be like chronological of like, okay, like what was like who was the plaintiff and the defendant in this original case? Like what are you appealing that happened in the original case? When was that judgment filed? When did you file your appeal? And
who was the judge?
Yeah, like who was the judge?
Or who were the judges? Yeah, like not necessarily, I mean, chronological order helps humans, but it's more like in a human order as opposed to the form order. Well, my original question was, is this an MVP review or is this is it like level, I mean, whatever it is you're calling it, like is it PDF plus or is it like guided? No, I'm asking
Anyway,
the
I
crew.
know. Yeah.
True. Yeah, that's fair.
think we're-
I'm sort of open to anything, any
Yeah.
criticization.
I feel like it's pretty low level because we just want to get something at the point where we can get it back in front of the appeals court to get their feedback. So it's almost as if this is like a review prior to like an SME review. That being said, I'm pretty sure they'll adopt a lot of what we give them. So we want it to be, you know, whatever we think that minimum is. So I guess, yeah, it's like a form, like a level
Like
one.
a guided, kind of more
It doesn't have
guided,
to be
because
the-
we want them to adopt something that's a bit more human friendly.
Yeah, I guess we could put in a little more.
We
So
might
maybe
we might want to give them something more refined if we think this might be a like convention they're going to adopt, because
I doubt they'll adopt it as a convention, but I think they'll likely say, you know, if it's getting the stuff on the page they want, they're generally happy with it. But you know, so we can put whatever extra effort we want into there. I don't think we have like a strong bias one way or the other.
okay.
So I think it's sort of like, Bryce, what you want to sign up for.
Cool. I am signing up for as much as I can, and I guess I'll just, at least when I go through this recording and make all these issues, I'll try and organize them as like, we should have this before we send off to the appeals court, and we can do this after and stuff. So cool.
Great.
Looks like we're getting pretty close to.
Yeah, no, we're getting
Yeah.
cool. So okay, when was the notice of the appeal filed? Stay. This was another one that I like wasn't sure the best way of going about, sort of having people enter things from this table. And so I just did, was there anything, like any sort of motions that could have affected when the notice of appeal was filed? Or I guess I don't know if when the notice of appeal is filed, I don't know if that's equivalent to the timeliness of the notice of appeal. I don't know by if timeliness they mean like how long it will take to get processed or what. But yeah, so let's say there was, and then the best way I have of doing this was just by going through each individual one and saying, was there, this is where I added the links of just link directly to the civil procedure.
Yeah. What does anybody have thoughts on what they're asking there?
So I actually think a checkbox would be okay here because it's a cover sheet. So I might have these all in one page. The checkbox.
One page? Okay.
Yeah. So all of these.
Would you do checkboxes, Quentin, or would you do radio buttons and then when the date shows up if they say yes?
Like this.
I
Like
would.
this, yeah.
Well,
I think that's a better way to do it rather than,
I could still have them all on one page though.
it's a lot, well,
it'll just be a little bit more compact for one screen if they're checkboxes, but the yes, no forces them to answer.
so
I
if you do,
suppose,
so basically the checkbox, if any of these are true, check them. Say yeah. So, because it's not a yes, no, it's a check everything that's true. Yeah.
It's actually how they're phrased on this screen, but let me see. But I mean, you're going to get a better response if you make the yes, no happen. Let's try to think that through. Do you have any insight, David? I've never filled one of these in. My guess is this is like if you filed your notice of appeal late, what's your excuse? But I don't know for sure if I'm right about that, having not used it.
Yeah, I think they're trying to say is any part of the reason why this is maybe here, like if this comes in here and it's later than we'd like it to be, is there any like reason why it's the court's fault? Because there are other things that have taken place inside, well, not the court's fault, but you know, like, are there administrative reasons?
Then it would make sense to have them all on one page, have a question, have them all on one page with checkboxes. Yeah, so it's basically one well, that's why it's under whatever D. Right, that's why it is under one question.
Because
Yeah.
it's basically, is there anything here that stopped you from filing this before now?
And the notice of appeal is a document you file in the trial court before you can perfect your appeal and do anything in this appellate court. So it's like, yeah, I don't know if that was helpful actually.
I do like them all being in one place. I don't think you lose much by having it be checkboxes as far as someone
I guess
not
the
checking.
alternate way, or the other way I was thinking about maybe doing it was instead of checkboxes, just like, was there anything sort of, I say like, I can reword this to be like essentially, was there anything that would cause this to be filed later than anticipated? And then just have a drop down. Like if you say yes, instead of going through each of these individually or even having them on the same page, just have like a drop down with maybe an optional like add another button that shows you the same drop down for each of like, did you file any motions? Here are some of the motions you could have, sometimes including other, like you selected if you filed, and then it asks you the date, and then you can add another.
I just worry about a framing that would be easily understood. I think it's like just like, did any of these things happen? Is a good, right? I mean, how would other people feel about that? Like,
Well, I mean, the other thing is the drop down is confusing for people to use, and it looks to me like you could have more than one of these.
yeah,
the
you could.
others.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
definitely.
really
Yeah,
like
definitely.
I really like David's solution. I think that makes a
Well, it was
perfect.
Quentin's suggestion originally, the checklist.
Oh well, Quentin, yeah, you guys.
Can we see the instructions for this one? I'm just curious, like if they
Yes.
give any more prompt for what they're asking for.
They do not. Actually, no, they do. Sorry, this was 5D,
Please enter the date.
I believe.
They just say enter the date the notice of appeal was filed.
Actually, it's just technically a section E. They just didn't put it there. So if the appeal form is a final judgment, please indicate whether any of the listed post-judgment things are listed.
So that might be like a parenthetical where it says it affected the timeliness of the notice of appeal. They might want you to tell them anytime any of those motions were filed, which would make sense because those are all like post or right at judgment motions that you might be expected to file in every case. And that would happen right before the appeal. So as far as whether they should affect the appeal, they should, because there's only like a short appeal window for housing
So you
cases.
don't have to say or any of these reasons why. It just say, did any of these things happen? Check any of these things check any of these motions you filed, right? Or whatever it is. I mean,
And
I think
then
that's the other
is
just
the one you have to handle on a new screen, I think.
yeah.
And say, is there anything else, any other motion you filed that could affect the timeliness of the notice of appeal? That doesn't quite 100% make sense to me, but we can start with that and then keep workshopping the language to get what they're trying to ask.
Okay.
But yeah, they should declare those motions regardless of what impact they think they had.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Wants to know no matter what is how I read this.
I see. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
It's the other that like the description is meant to help you figure out what to put in other. So that's like putting that on its own screen I think will help there.
I like that.
That's a good point. Okay. Cool. Perfect. Thank you. That's a good workshop to do this one. Go through all of these questions really quick. They're all sort of structured the exact same way of yes, no, and the date that pops up with links to things when I could find them. No, other is just, was there another type, fill it in. Then this is a good point of like another motion that affected things, is I can add that language. Let's just also say no for now. This is part 6, which makes sense to bring it up. And I kept most of the subtext from here, just also kept it here.
Yeah, that's generally what they've done.
Statements. So related appeals of just breaking this up was, are there any other appeals or parties that have happened? Let's say there's nothing with this particular party. There is a related issue with some other, like another similar appeal going on at the same time. Then that's broken for some reason. But essentially, the idea is if one of this, you're actually no, let's just not ask the same point. I was supposed to be able to ask. Okay, bug. I'll fix that. And then this is the certificate of service part that I was a bit confused about, which I think we talked about that before, and I think it makes sense to both. I think we decided on trying, like talking to the appeals court maybe about it, but maybe asking essentially, how do you plan on serving them? If we can, editing this language behind the scenes, or at least changing the language that we show to the user, and then maybe also changing the language behind the scenes to just be like, how do you plan on telling the other party this? Make sure you do this. Like, understand you have to do this by X date. And if we can't change the language.
Yeah, I think that Yeah, but you just copy the code block for at least the user-facing one for now.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay. Cool. So then.
right, you think that sounds right, Quentin, right? Because in the other certificate of service, we then also had a docx that we were doing a bit, but here you could just copy that and just fill in the variables into the existing form.
Yep. Yeah. That I think. Yeah. Just the mirroring the way we did it should work just fine. We might take out those radio buttons and have it just be. I think they also probably will want to list e-file MA. So there's no reason to have radio buttons if they're typing it in on the computer. So you could just make it a fill-in.
Do we change the I have made language to different language so that it matches what the person thinks they're answering?
Yep, that's our question for.
Oh, I see, for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll ask the appeals court
Sorry.
if we can do that. So yes, and then this is things that I'm not sure where the best place to go. I don't know if it makes sense to ask their name super late or if that should be forced first. But this is where just filling the plaintiffs. I don't think I changed anything about basic questions in this case. Do you have a docket number? What is the docket number? I might change the wording to clear that it's about the appeals case because they did already enter the previous docket number for the lower court. So I'll try and change that wording since they actually, okay, so I think a lot of this might be solved with the fact that I don't have the appeals court questions in. I don't remember how much of these were reworded and things like this, but
I don't think this one was actually, so that's a good question.
Okay, but yeah, at least that's sort of like I haven't done a ton of editing on basic questions yet of stuff like this because it's what makes perfect sense in the trial court. It makes it very confusing in the at appeals level because were you the plaintiff at the trial court, but were you defendant at the trials court level, but now you're appealing it is unclear. So let's just say you are the defendant, and then you should be able to fill out the plaintiff as well. They're going to be opposer, oppose face, and then
Opposer.
I like the names.
I was thinking opposer as opposed to a poser.
I'd say apostrophe poser. Opposer.
That would have been a good one.
I always go for the 3, 4, 5s. I always go for the 1, 2, 3s.
Yeah, no, the Google form filling in is very useful for that. When you're planning to file these, is I think asking for this address actually, or this date actually. So I might have to edit because that's not the filing, that's the service.
No,
okay.
It could be the signature date, so what happens is sometimes when you are working on something like this, an attorney fills in the form and then it gets served by a paralegal or a process server or constable. So the constable or whoever actually delivers it, secretary even, who puts it in the mail, they would fill in the certificate of service. But is there even a place for a signature on this form? There is, yeah. So
yes,
that does not have a date, weirdly. So usually there's a date there that would appear.
Interesting. Is that worth adding to the form?
No.
It's not their form, but
I would say it's okay.
I would check with the appeals court on that one. Sometimes they make mistakes in their forms.
That's true. You're right. They could have made a mistake. You're right.
Okay, so phone number, and then here's the form. For some reason, I realized that Firefox I should be able to download this and it will have the correct, yes, no radio boxes checked. Yeah, it just doesn't work in Firefox for some reason. I've been meaning to file a bug. But yeah, so the actual form fills out correctly and everything. Except I don't know if it probably should be asking for their address as well since it needs that. But yeah, form goes.
Checkboxes, I've been noticing it too, and it's not every PDF because in some cases I rebuilt the PDF and it got rid of that problem. But maybe Firefox can fix it upstream. I don't have to keep rebuilding PDFs.
Let's be nice. Yeah.
You say it's a Firefox issue?
Yeah.
I think it's a Firefox issue
because they didn't even support fillable forms. So
yeah.
Yeah, they did just
now
have that
do,
recently.
but in a buggy implementation, apparently.
So nothing else is fine. This is just same standard. Fill out the signature.
But we want to provide it as a flat PDF anyway, right? In this case, we don't want to show a preview of an editable form. Part of the problem with
the preview shouldn't.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So none of should the
The
final form be editable, but the preview should not be.
I think nothing you display on the screen in the browser should be editable, because editing it there looks like you've changed something, and then if you download it, it does not have those changes, I believe. And it certainly doesn't change anything in the docassemble interview. So it gives people a false sense that they've been able to change something that they haven't.
Okay. That makes sense. Does that?
I will say
this is a basic questions thing, though, I believe, because I haven't. That's like signature flow.
I think AL document might be able to like solve a lot of those pain points. So like there might be a sensible convention for like getting just, you know, the standard preview document or whatever. Or the standard whatever document we decide is standard.
Yeah, I don't know if there's
I still think it makes sense to have the final form be editable though, right? Because at this point we showed them, hey, your form is ready, and so there shouldn't be confusion about changing it again, right? Or even if there is, this is the final product.
Maybe the one they like download or the one they email to themselves would be editable, but not just the view. Like the view button would show you one that was flat. Also, I'm worried that some people's settings are such that when they click download, it will just show them it on the screen. So if that's editable, like how do we want to think about that? I think that might be a good question. But
I feel like I don't know, I'm trying to remember our discussions. I feel like our default was flatten unless it was something that we thought they were going to like the 209A, where they might take it, not even sign it yet, and keep it.
Like a 209A.
Well, but I mean, you can email yourself a version that is editable, whereas like being able to just see the version online
in the browser
as if it were editable. And I mean, like if they're going to print it and stuff, they could print it and then fill in the things they want to change as well. So
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of defaults. Like,
yeah, I just think the pain point of like changing a bunch of information and refining it on.
Oh no, I entirely agree, which is why we as default don't have those things be editable. So I think like what I'm saying is you have to make the case for something to be editable for it not to be flattened.
Yeah, it's not something you'll have to decide on this one form, but I think, but
yeah,
good discussion point, which we haven't really resolved, I guess. I know we talked about it before.
Yeah, I think we resolved it as far as the 209A goes, but then didn't talk about it sort of more generally.
Yeah, if this review screen works, then I would say like you don't really need to have the editable PDF. So if you had the time, once you had finalized the front end, to go in and tweak the things that needed adjustment here, some of them will. The auto review screen's not very good.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was tweaking it earlier today to change a few things, but I didn't know if anyone had any other tips on just how to make it a good screen.
Can I jump in here, please, for a sec? So Audrey's here. I don't know if she has to leave at 2, and I think she has a question for us, but I'm not sure. I'm wondering if
I'm actually all done, so Audrey, you should go ahead.
I don't want to cut you off, Bryce, but I thought if we can come back to you if Audrey has to leave. I don't know.
I don't have to leave, and I don't have a question. Matt and I met this morning and resolved the URL issue, so I think I'm set. Thanks.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you didn't leave without
good.
Getting a question.
Good catching that. I don't even think I good to see Audrey. I don't think I got you in there. I was focused on Bryce's share screen.
No, I wanted to be a fly on the wall. That works for me.
Well then, Bryce, do you feel like you have what you need out of this review?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think I've got enough stuff. I might ask David if you're recording to smooth the recording. But yeah, there's definitely enough stuff that I can edit and go through. Maybe by today, we'll see. And then I guess we'll I know, I'll talk with you and Quinn about like where in the appeals court we should send this when it's ready.
Yeah,
But
I think, we'll get it to a certain point, and if it's at a point that's good enough for us to shoot over, we'll shoot over it to them. And but whether or not we do that before or after next Wednesday, the next Wednesday we meet with them, which would be the first Wednesday in January.
Free King's Day.
What did you say King's Day?
It's the Feast of Epiphany, right? That's our next meeting.
Is that the 6th, right?
Sounds right to me.
I didn't realize the Wednesday
Being in
was
your
the
cake,
6th.
Okay.
But the point is that meeting when we meet with appeals would be when we could explicitly ask them some of these questions.
Maybe could they go into GitHub issues so we can remember them?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, it should be
actually,
tracked wherever.
yeah, I was gonna say whenever I get the recording of this, I'll go through and I'll try and make I'll honestly I might just lump a lot of these in the GitHub repo that I've got, and I'll tag them with appeals court issues, things I can change now, things that need to be changed in basic questions, etc. So
I wanted to just bring up a management question, and it's just a little nudge. Did we get the Teaching Tuesday videos for the first 2 weeks in December posted, and with a solution for the problem we couldn't find a solution for in the first one?
No.
Before I forget.
But I'm gonna upload this one today because Bryce needs it today. So I'll try to upload those other ones. I don't know if there was a I don't know what the solution was to the non-solution issue. So.
I think it's in Slack. I can just send it to you again.
I didn't. Be sure to at me because I don't think I.
Yeah, I will.
Alert last time.
Yeah.
We should figure out a way to get it so there's a direct to YouTube workflow. There is, that must exist somewhere.
Yeah, well, there's a direct to like Zoom's cloud storage workflow, but I know at the beginning of the pandemic we weren't using that because their servers were overloaded and it took a day for things to happen.
Zoom servers were overloaded.
This was at the beginning of the pandemic, though. It doesn't really. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording on Teaching Tuesday.
Yeah.
Unless there's any more Teaching Tuesday. I'm not saying go away. I'm just keeping it relevant.